Welcome to Original Being, where we explore the timeless wisdom of ancient practices and old ways of living, from holistic health and wellness to survival techniques, homesteading, and primitive skills. I'm Jillian Aries, a functional and holistic-minded physician associate and a homesteading mother of 3. I am on a quest to reconnect with this knowledge our ancestors lived by, practical skills, natural healing, and self-sufficiency in a modern world. Each episode, I'll be sharing insights, experiences, and conversations with experts and everyday people who embody this mindset. Together, we'll challenge modern conveniences, embrace hands-on learning, and rediscover the practices that have stood the test of time. Disclaimer, the information shared on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. My opinions and those of my guests are solely our own and are not affiliated with any institutions, employers, or certifications. This podcast does not provide medical advice, and any health-related decisions should be made in consultation with your personal healthcare provider. By listening, you acknowledge that you take full responsibility for your own choices and actions.
Today on Original Being, we have Tim Swanson. Tim is the founder of Owl Eyes Wilderness Survival, a traveling nature connection and wilderness survival school for people of all ages. He holds a double bachelor's degree in adventure education leadership and adventure therapy from Unity College. He is a level 2 certified animal tracker and a wilderness first responder. Tim has a variety of published articles in survival and nature connection magazines. Owl Eyes Wilderness is based in Townsend, Massachusetts. However, classes are offered year-round and throughout New England. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. So I want to know how you got into this, because it looks like since you got your bachelor's degree in adventure education leadership and adventure therapy, you were obviously already really interested in outdoor skills. But was this something that you've been learning your entire life, or did you just decide to go into that? Like, how did you end up where you are today?
So I kind of have a boring answer where I was just always into it. When I was a kid, I just wanted the bug toys and the, like little nature. I didn't want like car, kids always want toys and stuff. And all the books I wanted were like nature books, things like that. I wanted to be outside, building shelters, tracking animals. I liked all like the survival gear. And I'm fortunate that my parents let me have a knife at kind of like a pretty young age. I remember my first ever knife. I still have it. It was a little multi-tool and, little pliers on it and stuff, a little cheap one. And, I was able to carry that. So I was always kind of like making stuff, shelters and little spears and weapons and shooting archery, things like that. And then just growing up, always being into that, camping with the family and whatnot. And then in high school, that's when I really started getting into like, foraging and really the survival skills. So I bought a couple survival books, and I used to go over to the bookstore and just sit there in the bookstore and read all the things like that. And eventually I think it was like the Peterson Field Guide to Wild Edible Plants or whatever it is. And I still have that exact book. And, that kind of really got me into, I've like read it cover to cover and started going out there collecting wild edibles. And I was bringing like roadkill chipmunk skins into class and like working on them. Nobody will ever mess with you if you start bringing animal skins to school. I'll tell you that. Just had a big interest in all the outdoor stuff. And then I found out about Unity College because my dad's childhood friend went there and he told me about it. I looked at it. It was the only college I looked at, only college I applied to. So I'm glad I got in. And I went for adventure education leadership and adventure therapy. So both of them are pretty much the same. Adventure therapy is more like the wilderness therapy that, a lot of people are familiar with. So that was kind of more of what I pursued just because it seemed like a more in-depth job right out of college and whatnot. And then right when I graduated is actually when I started my business, sort of on accident, sort of unofficial, just like leading, because I actually applied to a full-time job thinking it was full-time because the website on the description didn't say anything, but it was actually only for like a few hours, like teaching and stuff like that. So there was a weird miscommunication. So during the interview that came up, and then she was like, "Oh, but you have all these skills. Do you want to like lead tracking walks and foraging walks?" I was like, sure. So I was doing, 1 or 2 of those a month on the weekends when I wasn't working wilderness therapy. And then, I eventually moved out to Utah, worked for another wilderness therapy company, came back home. And then that's really when I started to, start up and pursue my full business, Owl Eyes Wilderness Survival. So now it's my full-time thing. I'm teaching classes left and right, sometimes 3 a day. Wow. So it's going really good. And I feel very, thankful that I can make this happen at this point.
Yeah, I've been following you, I think, since the really early days, honestly. Like on Instagram, I remember because I lived back in Massachusetts, and I remember anybody who was doing survival skills or anything like that, I was just like, follow, especially if they were local. So I was super excited to find a local person. So to have watched your business grow just over the last, whatever, 5 years that I've seen it is really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for being an early supporter.
So speaking of your business growing, you've done a ton of work with kids. Is that something you initially intended to, or did it just kind of develop because you found that homeschool programs especially like really were looking for this?
Yeah, I think, in the early days of me doing all the outdoor stuff under my business, I was kind of just doing whoever wants to show up can show up to the foraging class, tracking class, whatever. And then it started coming up where somebody was like, do you do birthday parties? And I was like, I could, sure, and then I kind of, because I don't have a background in business, so I kind of just learned still learning every day how to do things, all the marketing and accounting stuff and website stuff is a whole new thing and all that. But, I was just kind of like, when people asked, I was like, sure, I'll do it. Why not? Because I want to do this. So let's just, whatever people ask, let's do it. So, I started doing, birthday parties, and then people were like, oh, do you do homeschool and stuff like that? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do it. And then, my programs, now I have a very solid curriculum. I have 15 different homeschool programs divided into 5 paths. I like kind of categorize them. Survivalist, wildcrafter, bushcrafter, hunter-gatherer, and specialist. And then each of those has 2 to 4 different programs within. So like survivalist is my most popular one, obviously. Mm-hmm. That has an A, B, C, and D. A is like basic survival. It's teach kids how to use knives, build fires, things like that. And then after they do A, then they can do B, C, D, and then it works up. Survivalist C is actually modeled after the book Hatchet by Gary Paulson. Mm-hmm. So no knives, because in Survivalist A and B, they use knives, they use saws. And then in Survivalist C, it's like, all right, ditch those, only hatchets. And then Survivalist D, that's kind of like the advanced program where I've worked with the kids already for 8, because these are 6-week programs. So I've worked with them for, 18 weeks or whatever. No knives, no saws, no hatchets. We're going to flint knap and make stone tools. Mm. So one of the classes, we're just sitting there grinding bone for 3 hours on a rock, That's why it's awesome, because it's, boring in a way, but you're making really cool stuff, but it's just stuff that takes a while. So that stuff is the fun stuff for me. But, so I kind of just, developed over time. Now it seems to be like the weekdays, during the day are kind of for homeschool kids. And then I'll do, weekday evening stuff. Like tonight I'm doing a, wooden bear carving class at a brewery pretty much right down the street. So we do the blades and brews classes, and those always do great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, indoor at night. So not much wilderness survival, more like indoor art, relaxing and having pizza and beer or whatever people are going to have. So
yeah, but that's great too.
But it's good for the winter because, it's dark and cold and people don't want to go outside. So then the
are you doing kids classes through the winter too? Do you do like
full. Yep. So every single day, every single time of year. So winter slows down for the outdoor classes just because people don't want to be outside. And then like summer camps pick up obviously in the summer, and, school vacations always do good, but usually winter time is the kind of time for me to work on personal projects. But classes are still happening. So it's just less classes.
Well, something I've noticed, so kids love you, obviously. I've seen
no matter how mean I am, they keep coming.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, though, is what I found is you hold very firm and clear boundaries with kids.
Yeah.
But they love you. They love you even if you're like, guys, step back, or like, don't do this, or everyone stop. Whatever it is, they still love you. They never, I think that first of all, kids need that. They need those like firm boundaries, but you're always kind and you're still fun Tim. But also that kids who are learning how to use knives and work with fire at an early age, and when they learn it in this proper way where you're saying like safety is first, and so you are not going to move and you're not going to do anything until you're doing it safely, they respect that, but then they're less likely to get hurt. And so people have this fear of like, oh, but kids can't ever touch knives and they can't ever touch these things. And those are the kids that get hurt more than the kids who are using them from a very young age.
Definitely. Yeah. Rarely do I ever have to go into my first aid kit for classes. I teach pretty much 2 carving classes a day almost, especially in the warmer months. But, the past couple of days I've been doing library spoon carving classes and, not to jinx myself, but I haven't dug into my first aid kit in weeks, after many classes, which usually the injuries happen from like breaking sticks or, kids tripping and hitting a rock or something. It's never really actually the knife. And if it is the knife, it's like, Band-Aid most of the time, maybe a gauze pad and some medical tape. And I've only had to send people to go get stitches like 2 or 3 times. So, and those are always actually, interestingly enough, more advanced students. It's never like the beginning students. So it's students that are like good with the knives, and then they do something really dumb. So my worst, in 11 years of business, my worst first aid situation was 7 stitches. And that was during the Survival at Sea, the Hatchet program. And the kids were just having a rough day because what happens is the parents give the kids a rusty hatchet that's in the back of their garage that's like super dull, and they can't really carve with it. So they were they make a certain type of weapon, like I call them throwing stars. It's like 2 sticks sharpened and tied together like an X. And they have to carve a little groove in there, and all the kids were struggling. So I was like, all right, if you guys really want to use your knives, you can, even though that's like, taboo in the hatchet class. So then, they were using their knives, and then he was cutting towards himself. And then I was mid-sentence telling him not to cut towards himself, and he slipped and clipped himself right in the inside of his finger and thumb. And he had like a little frowny face cut there, and so now his nickname was Scar. That's what we call him, because he has a nice big frowny scar there to teach him to not cut towards himself.
Yeah, we'll probably never do that again.
Yeah, and that is, and that was pretty much like, it's fine, you know what I mean? That's not like a major injury at all. I don't consider stitches to be a major injury. Branches falling on people's heads out in the woods is always my biggest fear. So I'm always like looking up, making sure, because that's like a pretty big deal. And no other really medical stuff, we're out in the woods, so there's inherent risks, right? Like branches, bees, poison ivy, things like that. But we're pretty good at avoiding all that stuff. So, but yeah, everyone's pretty safe.
Yeah. What would you say kids are most interested in these days?
Definitely knives, because I think parents really can't be their own kids' mentors. No matter what, it's always a different relationship. I have 2 stepkids, and it's I can't teach them. Like it's like annoying to me, annoying to them. But I teach tons of other kids their age, and it's fine. So I think parents usually, they bring me in to be like, oh, let's have the kids learn how to actually use knives, because we have knives in the house, or we want them to get good at these cool skills and all this. And then the other one I'd say is definitely fire, because that's like a really cool one. And, that's teaching kids. I tell kids all the time, this one little match, this thing can burn down your house. It can literally burn down an entire city. I was living in Colorado during that, was it the Marshall Fire there that happened, the big one a few years ago. And it was like less than a mile from where I was living. So we got evacuated, all that. So I tell the kids that example and be like, let's use fire. Let's learn about it. But we're going to do it safe, right? We're not going to build fires in a big dead field of grass, or we're not going to build up against any trees. And we're definitely not going to be playing with any of this stuff in our house, or like, they use the ferro rods that make a lot of sparks. And that's always like a magical thing. Like this little, they just sit there, and they could probably just sit there and make sparks, like hypnotized for 3 hours. But, it's all like an amazing thing. And here's an outlet for them to be able to actually use these things that they probably aren't allowed to use at home, and like experience them. As you know, if there's something that's kind of like taboo or not allowed, sometimes kids are actually gravitated towards that because they want to do it, but then they secretly do it, or they hide, or something like that, right? Yeah. So it's a chance for them to learn how to use and respect that, right? Build awareness on it, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you ever approaching, I don't know if this is in one of the classes that you have, like how for just, I guess, a child to survive if they were dropped somewhere or got lost, like if they're just out hiking, I don't know why they'd be hiking by themselves, but say they are, and they just turn around and get lost. Do you have a class that really teaches them that, like what to do in that moment?
Yeah, I have. It's pretty much like all of the classes. I always make points on it, right? Like I show kids survival kits. But the thing about kids is, usually they're with their parents, and usually they're not carrying a lot. So when I teach my adults stuff, it's a completely different, it's the same set of skills, just different order, right? Because adults tend to be having the backpack. They tend to have a little bit more like, hopefully telling someone where they're going. But kids, if they get lost, it's a whole different dynamic. Because if you ever just look at the news or whatever, if a kid ever goes missing, it's a big deal, right?
Yep.
Everybody goes crazy, right? If I go missing, when I used to live on my own, right? Maybe it'll be 2 weeks before anyone's like,
They're
oh,
like,
Tim
Tim's
hasn't
just in the
called
woods
us.
having fun.
Yeah, like, oh, Tim must be busy or whatever. And then, next thing you know, my body turns up 3 weeks later by some random hiker or something, But kids, I tell them, there's only 2 things I want you to do. Build a shelter and remember your name. Because there's actually a weird situation that happens time and time again where if kids get lost, they actually tend to hide from search and rescue teams that are calling their name. And I don't know if that's like, a fear response where it's like, I'm afraid, so I'm going to hide. And then I always tell the kids, I'm like, you just turn back into wild animals, You're not humans. We haven't domesticated you yet, so you just turn back into wild animals.
It's like a pig. It's a pig getting released in the woods. They just turn back into a wild
right.
hog.
You're like, like cats go feral. Kids can do the same, or I don't know if that's like us teaching them like, oh, don't talk to strangers,
right?
And then
just the
someone's
fear
calling,
of the
I don't know who
strangers
that
looking
is.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's statistics out there. You can look it up that kids actually will hide and not respond to their name. So really, they'll remember their name. They just won't respond to it. I don't know if that's a panic state or like a don't talk to strangers thing. And then the other thing is I tell the kids is build a shelter, right? Because what that's going to do is that's going to give you something to do, right? I never say don't panic because I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to, right? If you're lost out in the woods, you're going to get that, right? So like, I'll teach people breathing techniques, stuff like that, but I never say don't panic because, it's like when you're driving 5 miles over the speed limit, you turn the corner, there's a cop there. What happens, right? You still get that feeling, right? That little panic feeling. When you're lost in the woods, it's going to set in. It's just, you can't let that take over, right? Yeah. So you can't let that control you, but it's going to happen. You're going to get that stomach adrenaline feeling like, oh, I'm lost in the woods. What do I do? Well, here, I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff to do. And with kids, build a shelter, gather a bunch of sticks. And I teach them the debris shelter, super simple shelter, no tools, no rope. And if I can teach them like carry a fire starter, carry a water bottle, carry like a trash bag and an emergency blanket, and you can build a 5-minute shelter right there. Just poke a hole in the trash bag, put it over you like a rain jacket and curl up in that emergency blanket, stuff it with leaves. Because that also keeps them put, right? Like, they always tell kids, if you're lost, stay put.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to just sit on a rock and wait because what if it gets cold at night?
Yeah,
At least it gives you something to do. So build a shelter, even if it's a pile of leaves, crawl into it because that's going to help you at least, So that's the 2 things I tell kids to do, because they don't have cell phone. Well, kids now, they have all the Apple Watches and everything. I see them showing up to classes with everything now.
They're like, I'll never get lost.
Yeah, exactly. They got all the stuff. So, but so that's the kind of the stuff. And then obviously the other skills like making weapons, those are more fun things to do in class, but also teaching them a lot of things. But if kids get lost, it's like, don't make a atlatl and go try to hunt frogs. It's like, make a shelter first. Yeah. And then if you're in there for a while, then you can start making the weapons. So,
well, isn't staying put like one of the most important things? Because I see this happen with a lot of adults that have been found where they got lost and died was they were trying to find their way back to the trail or whatever, but they just get more lost or just get further and further away and it's harder for rescuers to find you. So isn't that like the number one thing, especially for kids, is like stay put?
Yeah, it's a gray area, right? Because I used to be on search and rescue teams and, what happens is with search and rescue is they look at your point last seen or your point last known, right? And it's like, okay, your car is at the trailhead. You didn't tell anyone where you're going, but they found your car. That's where they're going to start searching, right? Or maybe you told someone where you're going and you're going on like a 3-day backpacking trip up in the White Mountains or whatever. And you're like, okay, here's the campsites that I plan to go to, right? And maybe you did have that GPS and you told, you texted somebody from the GPS, hey, made it to the first campsite tonight. And then they never heard from you again. That's going to be your point last known right there is that campsite that you notified someone that you were at, right?
Yep.
So the closer that you can stay to that, the better. But there is a little bit of a gray area because if for some reason, there's a couple factors, right? Maybe the area is unsafe. Maybe it doesn't have resources. Maybe you didn't know you were lost and you actually ended up going pretty far off track. And now you're in the middle of somewhere where they're not even going to think to look, right? That's usually what gets people in trouble is they don't accept that they're lost and they just keep going, right? Because then they keep going further and further off, Massachusetts is a little bit different. We could pretty much walk 10 miles in one direction and you can pretty much hit at least some sort of road or something or a, Starbucks or a market basket or whatever and end up out of, But,
And some
going up in the White
civilization.
Mountains, some places in
Right.
Maine, you even Western Mass, you can get pretty deep in the woods. Even walking in a straight line, I'll do an exercise with students where I blindfold them in like a flat, field, and be like, all right, walk, see that soccer goal over there? You're going to walk to that. Then I blindfold them and they cannot walk in a straight line because humans are actually, if you look at other animals, turtles go to like the exact GPS coordinates where they were born, right? Salmon, think about them. They go up the same river they were born, but how many of us can go to the exact GPS coordinates that we were born, right? So humans operate navigationally by familiar visual landmarks. And they've done studies. The only people that don't do that, obviously, are blind people. And what they do is they actually create maps. So that's a whole different navigation sense. But most people operate from familiar visual landmarks. And we can see that if we ever just ask someone road directions, or look at street signs or anything like that. It's all visual and it's telling us what things are. So that's, even though we may have not been there before, we can, whatever the GPS tells us now, but back in the day, it was like pull up the MapQuest. It tells you where to go, right? It's visual. But, if we're out in the woods, it's like, oh, yep, there's that boulder. Okay, I turn right at the boulder. Yep. And then there's that tree that got struck by lightning and has that big split in it. So great. I walk a little bit past that and there's my water. Now I use those to go back to my shelter. But if I drop you in an unfamiliar place, it's very likely that you're actually going to walk in circles if you're not paying attention, if you don't know how to walk in a straight line in the woods, which is actually easy, but you just have to think about it.
I found that the visual skill, not everybody has. I don't know if you've noticed that too, but I'm a very visual person and I'm very observant of my surroundings. So I tend to see all these landmarks and these things. And when I'm hiking with other people, they're like, didn't we go this way? Didn't we? I'm like, no, because look at that. Like you said, like there's that tree or there's that thing I saw, and they didn't see that and they don't remember that. I don't know if it's like because they're looking down or if it's just certain people's brains and the way they are taking information in. But that sense of direction is not something everybody has naturally.
Yeah. And I think, like you put me in the city, I'll get lost. I'll just curl up in a ball and just give up. But you drop me off in the middle of the woods and it's like, okay, this is my territory. This is where I'm familiar with. I can navigate and I know the things just because I've spent so much time in the woods, because I hunt, I forage, I go tracking animals. So I'm always off trail in new spots. But, there's a million ways that you can kind of do that. One way I feel like I sometimes subconsciously do is make like bird's eye view maps, right? Okay, the road is this way. And as I move on, okay, there's this stream that runs this way, so I can assume that this stream's going to go that way. Maybe it
like
turns
in your
off.
head, like you're just creating that.
Exactly, right? And then it's like, okay, I hit the stream, so now I know where to go, right? That's a handrail because I can't go past the stream because then I'm in a new place, right? Or looking at the map and realizing that the whole woods you're in is surrounded by trail or road, then it's like, okay, I just need to be able to line up 3 trees at a time and just keep 3 trees going. I can walk in a straight line easily, right? Or maybe keep the sun to the left side of my face so I can keep walking in a certain direction. But, and even like walking off trail, I feel like sometimes, because I bring beginners training for Naked and Afraid and Alone. So I have the whole spectrum of people, and it's amazing to, everyone's welcome, and, I'm never judgmental of anybody, but it's amazing that, some people, it's just, they've never stepped off trail. So even walking in like terrain that has like sticks or rocks, we're so used to walking on like pavement and sidewalks and flat ground, tile floor, things like that. It's fun to kind of watch people experience that for the first time, even adults, not just kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
'Cause they're tripping and falling and going crazy all over the place. And over time, you kind of see them pick up like, oh, like I need to actually pick my feet up to step over these things, or I need to look around differently than I would on the street, So it's cool to see people kind of go through that process.
That's an interesting concept because even though I'm in the woods a lot, I tend to be in woods that I know pretty well. I haven't really gone out somewhere with a completely unknown territory and like not really known where I was and not known the boundaries of it. And even if I take the kids hiking or we're typically on that, a trail that's a pretty well-maintained trail, and I'm less likely to veer off of it unless we're going to go, we see some really good mushroom or something. We're going to go grab it. But one time my in-laws are in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and they have, I think, around like 40 acres up there. But I knew that forest really well. I had gone out there and there were some like rough trails, but I knew it really well. And then they got the land logged. And this was a long time ago now, several years ago. But they got the land logged, and I went out and I was so thrown off because everything looked totally different. I mean, it was just completely messed up and all over the place. And I went the way I normally go. And then I went a little bit off trail. And then all of a sudden, when I turned around, had no idea where I was. Like, I was completely lost. And that had never happened to me in my life. I was all alone, and there's no cell phone service. I think I probably had my phone on me, but there was no service. And so I'm like, all right. And I did move. I mean, I was like, okay, I think I know where I am. I'm going to go back this way, the way I came, that I thought I came. But I was totally turned around, and I found another logging road, not the road that they had used. And I followed that, and I had an idea of where I thought it was going. First, I'm just like, this has got to go somewhere. And nobody like even wondered where I was. So I like followed it for so long, and I came out totally not where I thought I was going to. Like, I thought I was going like up the road basically and was going to come out this certain like maple sugar shack, and I came way, way down by this other place. It was just completely different. But that was a huge lesson for me, and showed me how easy it is for that to happen to someone. That all like, you know, I think I'm so observant. I think I have a really good sense of direction, but it just takes this one little moment of like, all of a sudden everything looks the same and you don't know where you are anymore. And then I came and I hiked all the way back up to the house, and everyone like had no idea. They were like, "Oh, we just thought you were enjoying your time in the woods." Like,
you were gone for like 2 minutes and entered some weird time warp thing, you know. But again,
what?
Familiar visual landmarks, right? As you were familiar with those, then it changed, and then it was no longer familiar, right?
Yeah.
So then it's like you're in the same spot that you've been in hundreds of times before, but something changed, you know.
Yep.
So that's
and
always
it's really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're just seeing everything around you looking the same, and then being like, "Wow, wait a minute, I don't know where I am anymore." That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's always a getting lost is kind of, and I've been lost. You know, my mind's always going all over the place, so sometimes I'm just not paying attention. You know, and there's been a couple times where I like have that moment of like, "Oh, wait a minute, let's stop, let's slow down a sec here." You know, so, but you know. I'm still here, so at least I found my way back a couple times.
Do you ever use a compass?
So I used to use it way more when I used to work wilderness therapy. We navigated just through that, you know. But in the woods in Massachusetts, I feel like even if it's new places, I don't really feel like I just don't need it. Yeah. But I always have one on me. And, you know, when I'm up in the Whites, if I have to go off trail, because there's a lot of bushwhacks and stuff, I'll always take a bearing, things like that, and just make sure that I have it. The thing about a compass is a lot of people are like, you know, they need to know how to use it, you know? So I always ask people, how do you use it? It's like, well, points north. It's like, okay, well, what's north? I don't know. It's like, okay, well, the only thing a compass does is give you a constant, right? It's pointing to magnetic north, not true north. And, you know, if I keep that needle the same way as I'm moving, right? There's a whole rabbit hole we could go down here with how to use map and compass, but, I can take a bearing and that will help me walk in a straight line. So that's another way to just be able to walk in a straight line, right? And then if I have a map, I can use the compass to figure out exactly where true north is and declination and all that stuff. And then, you know, be able to bushwhack and navigate. If I have the map, if I know where I am, I can be like, all right, I want to go from here to there. Let's, you know, orient the map. Let's take a bearing with the compass on the map and let's go, you know? I have one in my survival kit, things like that. But I only tend to use it when you need to use the compass before you need it, right? It's like, okay, let me go off trail, even if it's to go, you know, take a dump in the woods, because that happens over and over again. You hear about it. Hikers go off trail to go to the bathroom, dig a cat hole, and they get lost. They leave their backpack on the trail because they're just going away for 5 minutes, you know, and then they forget where the trail is, and they get lost and they have nothing, you know, not even in their pockets. So, you know, just being able to, okay, let's take a bearing. Let's just take that 2 seconds it takes, take a bearing back to the trail. Now I can go wherever I want, and I at least know generally where the trail is going to be. So,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Something else that I thought was interesting was before we had the interview, I wanted to ask other people who are not necessarily into survival skills or any of this stuff, because I've been so interested in this for so long. So what I find interesting is not necessarily what everyone else finds interesting. So I asked a lot of people like, well, you know, I'm interviewing this guy who teaches survival skills, and what would you want to know? And several people, like, their mind automatically went to like apocalypse. Yeah. Like, you know, like just like, well, what do I need to have in my home and how do I plan and all this stuff? And I was like, what? Like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, have you found that to be a common thing, or is there just a lot of overlap that you are kind of like teaching for that too, I guess?
Yeah. And I've actually kind of had the, you know, it's like a slow developing plan to actually do like urban preparedness, because I do wilderness survival, and then the urban preparedness obviously would be like bug out bags, in the home stuff, self-defense, even like lock picking. That would be cool stuff just for fun, cool skills, all that. But a lot of the wilderness skills, think about if you go backpacking, right? And you're good at backpacking, you have all the gear for that, and then your power goes out at home for a week. Same exact thing. You're just camping, but you're in your home. There's your tent. Now, what are you going to do, right? Do you have the backpacking? Even if you just have backpacking stuff, right? You got the fuel canisters, you got the little stoves, you got your warm sleeping bags you can curl up in at night if your heat goes out. You got your water filter, so you have the stuff. So a lot of it can kind of go hand in hand. I go and get my exposure to the city every now and then. And I'm always like, okay, if something goes wrong here, where am I going? But I have to deal with a lot of people and also probably not being able to drive out of here because 60,000 people are going to be stuck on the highway trying to get out, right? And even when I was living in Colorado, I was living right outside of Boulder and there was that big fire and it was like, okay, you guys got to evacuate. And they're just banging on the door and they're like, you guys got to leave now. And it's like, where? They were just like, anywhere but here. And it's like, okay, no direction at all. There's however many people. I was like, we're going to be stuck on the highway. Grab the sleeping bags because if we're going to be sleeping in the car, get water because that'll just be good to have, and get the cat, and we're going to be stuck in the car, right? So that's kind of what my mind went to, is like body temperature regulation, hydration, make sure that we have all of like our very important things because we have a second to just grab stuff quick. I was actually really upset because I left my bow that I made. And I was like, if that house burns down, that's the thing I'm going to be most upset about.
Oh, no.
That's like my firstborn child. So, but, other things obviously came first. But we ended up not being stuck on the highway and ended up getting to a friend's house far enough away. I think like the whole zombie apocalypse thing that all the movies show, I think they like romanticize that. It's like a very like acute, sudden thing. And they always make it look like cool and like, here's the zombie apocalypse. But it's probably going to start. We've all kind of been in a weird way, like in a little mini apocalypse with the coronavirus there, right? People are like fist fighting over toilet paper, all that stuff, right? And then there's like a sickness going on. People are dying and there's two sides, right? Everyone's fighting each other, even if it's not physical, but it's still, with the whole vaccine thing and all that, people are like demonizing each other no matter what. And I'm not going to get into all my stuff on that, but there's always two sides and things. So in a way, we've kind of had to deal with that, right? We're like, we don't want to, associate with each other. We're all wearing masks, separating from each other, social distance, all that. You see people at the grocery store with like the fun noodle hats. They have like the 6-foot fun noodles coming out of their hats.
There was some funny stuff at the grocery store back in the day.
Right. Yeah. So in a way, we've kind of all had some experience with a little bit of a urban disaster, right? Urban preparedness.
Yeah, that's true. Some people probably didn't leave their house for 6 months at least.
Yeah. So, and everyone's making it up as they go because this isn't something anyone has dealt with, right? Now we kind of have. So if it happens again, it's like, okay, I'm always interested in just because I always watch like human psychology, right? On things like this. And it's like, okay, what is sold out at the grocery store, right? And everyone, it's like the whole thing, the toilet paper thing. People were literally fighting over toilet paper. And it's like, being somebody who like goes backpacking and is out in the woods all the time and hunting and stuff, sometimes I'm just caught short without toilet paper. And it's like, okay, well, there's tons of stuff that you can use. So
you just gotta know your plants.
Yeah, right. Here's poison ivy. Here's mullein, which is nice and soft, but we're even using sticks, rocks, snowballs are the best. But, it's a little cold, but they work. But it's like, for me, toilet paper is not a necessity, right? It's like, I want like tuna and like the beans and the canned foods and stuff like that. And that stuff was literally like in some grocery stores, I didn't have any issue going there and getting that stuff. But you think that that's the stuff people would want. But it just kind of shows what people value. And right now in society, it seems like we value comfort, comfort and convenience, right? So, not judging anybody. That's just objectively what I've seen, right, is, okay, toilet paper's out. Obviously, that just shows what people think is the most important, right? And then all the elderberry syrup was all gone too, which was interesting. I was like, okay, I get that. That's cool. Right? Yeah, but
Or like, the
So,
eggs and the milk, the perishable stuff. And if they obviously don't have animals, then they're like, oh no, we need to really stock up on this.
yeah. I
think
was
that's
going to
probably is what's going to happen if, not necessarily a full on apocalypse like we were just saying, but like certain things that suddenly are unavailable for whatever reason, whether it is like, we're seeing with the avian flu or something that happens that a specific thing is just now no longer available.
when you get into urban stuff, a lot of people get political about it, or they get very, everyone has their idea of what could happen, right? There's a million different things, right? Hurricane, tornado, wildfire, nuclear bomb, financial collapse. There's all these things, right? It's like, okay, well, choose one, plan for that, right?
Yeah.
Plan for that. Whatever one seems most likely to you, plan for it. The thing about the house is we've all dealt with power outages in New England, right? And it's like, okay, well, everyone's kind of prepared for that at least. Yeah. But, just having things on hand, right? Candles, flashlights, batteries. When our power goes out, we lose our water too.
Yeah, me too.
And we learned that because moved into a new house. So we didn't know that. So we had the power go out for like a day or two and we had no water. We have some water on the property that we could filter last minute, but we ended up getting water jugs, right? And we just filter that water out, go collect spring water, whatever. And then use that water for watering the garden once we want to change it out, things like that. So we have that stuff, and it's kind of a slow investment. And there's something I learned from, if anybody ever heard of Ron Hood and Karen Hood, they're awesome. Ron Hood passed away a few years ago, and he made this whole video series it's called the Woods Master series. And they did like an urban one. And there was something I saw in that forever ago that was Karen was showing this technique that they do called copy canning. And I don't know if they developed this or whatever, giving them credit for how I learned it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, you have a can of Spam. I think they use Spam as an example in the video, but it was like you have a can of Spam in your house and then you use it. Now, when you write it down your grocery list, when you go to the grocery store, you're going to get 2 cans of Spam, right? And it's a slow way over time to actually, I don't stockpile. I don't know if I want to use that word, hoard, gather, right? There's all these things.
Yeah.
You're not really hoarding. You're just over time gathering food. And what you're doing by, over time, just accumulating food slowly is you're actually helping everybody out because you're taking pressure off the food system when all that's going on, right? So say if like, hey, look at Market Basket. If you're in New England, there's the Market Basket right before a snowstorm. It's always slammed. It's like, if you have stuff, one, you're helping those other people out who weren't really prepared and, oh crap, like I got to go and gather stuff. You don't need to go. So you're one less person there waiting in line so people can get what they need and get out of there. You're also one less person taking those things that maybe other people just didn't think to have, right? Like I said, I try not to judge anybody. So they have nothing in their house, but then they got to go out and gather it, and then what you're also doing is keeping yourself out of danger, right? Yeah. Because look at society. Anytime there's a big group of people, you do run the risk of, and I'm not talking out of paranoia, I'm just talking out of like literally what's happened in the world. Anytime you have a big group of people, you run the chance of more bad things happening, right? When I say bad, I mean like injuries or, we can go to extreme example like shootings or things like that. But even just like mild confrontations in the parking lot, Yep. I'm from Mass, so that's just a normal day, and it is. But you keep yourself out of that. You're helping everyone else out. So even just slowly accumulating things, right? When you go to the grocery store, you don't have to go spend $5,000 on canned food right then and there.
Right.
But like when you go grocery shopping, why not get 5 extra cans of tuna that one time? Put it somewhere. Make sure you're rotating, obviously, right? It takes years for them to expire, which is good for canned food. But, and then next time you go, get 5 cans of whatever, some beans. Everyone always thinks rice and beans, but I need more of a variety than that. So I want other things too. And then the next time you go, maybe 5 cans of whatever, canned corn or, canned artichoke hearts, whatever. Just random stuff that you can have, right? And I feel like that eliminates a big financial thing. You don't need like some underground bunker right then and there, stockpiled with food all of a sudden.
Well, I like that idea that you said, like, oh, you went and you bought this and now next time go buy more, because you're also buying what you particularly choose to eat, or saying like, oh, this is what we're utilizing. And And that goes into the same mindset of, homesteading and gardening and saying like, well, what does our family eat? What are we mostly using? What do we have the biggest need for that we need to plan for? And kind of tailoring it towards that.
Exactly. Right.
I like that idea.
All those, there's like those, like food in a bucket, apocalypse food storage.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the grocery store buying that stuff and eating that day to day. I'm not. So I don't want that. It's good. Maybe have a couple of those around, whatever, those I hate those backpacking boil in a bag meals.
Yeah.
If I had to, but I don't want to have to. I want to be prepared that, if I have to, I can eat my cat's canned food if I really want to. It smells good, put that, slap it on a piece of toast. You might not, you're right. I haven't eaten it, but it smells good when I'm scooping it out for them. But, things like that. But it's just one of those things where just preparation, right? Like, you probably already have enough blankets in your house that you can like pile them up on yourself and all that. But like, being able to see is a big thing, right? Thankfully, people live in their house day after day after day, so you can kind of navigate around your house in the dark. But water, food, first aid, and I think about like what's going to take me out, right? And it's every now and then we do need to go for like some medications or somebody gets sick or something like that. And like, why not just have some Benadryl or something just to make them more comfortable, or some cough medicine or something. My whole family was all sick with some cough that's been going on for weeks, really. But even just creating comfort, right? Because when there's other stressors, it's like we want everyone to be as comfortable as they can. Or maybe someone gets cut and gets an infection. Now, what do we do? Because that could take somebody out, right? Those are kind of like the silent killers, where it's not like fighting or like, starvation. Where they always show in like the movies, it's probably going to be like a little infection or like constipation or something that's going to take someone out.
Small stuff. I agree.
So,
well, in that same vein of me asking people what they were interested in, then I had some other people who were just not outdoorsy at all being like, well, so when I said it's not an apocalypse type thing, it's more wilderness survival, being like, well, I'm never going to be in that situation, kind of that kind of attitude, which I find really interesting, because maybe that just goes back to being prepared and thinking, well, what if you were in a plane crash, but you survived? Or what if, again, like you did go hiking and you went off trail? That's the same thing as a little kid learning how to play with a knife. If you're an adult, and unless you never plan on ever going hiking or having an accident or going anywhere, of course this is relevant, in my opinion. I mean, do you feel that same way? Like, should everyone be learning survival skills or just wilderness survival skills as a basis of preparedness in life?
So the short answer is yes. And then I could answer this in like 3 hours, long answer, but I want everyone listening to this to just I'm going to ask everyone a question, right? And obviously you can answer this for yourself and sit there, because you can't tell me, because you guys are listening to the recording. But who here has a road map in their car, right? That's a question that I ask every single Wilderness Survival 1 class that I do. And I look around, I could tell by everyone's look or body language, they're like, oh, I don't have one, right? Because every single one of us, even me, we're all using our phones.
Yep.
Okay. Now, phones have batteries. And as we know, batteries get used, right? Maybe someone's, whatever, playing Pokemon Go a little too much all day, and then their battery dies. And then they're somewhere, right? And maybe just trying to study like the major highways, like in your state, right? Like in Mass, we have like 495, 95, Route 2, all that. So it's like, okay, how can I get there? Or at least like a general, it might take me an extra hour to figure out how to get home, but how can I, right? So I just tell everyone, get one of those, what I have is the Gazetteer. It's like a book of the state of just maps, right? Or just a AAA road map. It literally takes up 0 space in your car. And just in case, like your phone might go out, things like that. The other question I would say is, how many of us have ever been stuck in traffic? That happens all the time. And maybe there's something that would require us to stay in our car for upwards of at least a few hours, maybe even longer. And that we just, I'm going to leave my house. It's winter time. I got my t-shirt on, but I have my automatic starter in my car. And then, I start it up. I can go into my car. It's nice and warm. It's a 30-minute drive to work down the highway, whatever. And this is, I feel like it's not a extreme example. This is stuff that happens every day. People get stuck in traffic, right? Usually it just takes an extra 20 minutes, in Mass, it's an extra 4 hours or whatever, but you get there, right? But, just something like that. And it's like, well, what if you're stuck in traffic? You can't get gas and your car dies, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be able to keep you warm. Cars are terrible at insulating. and here you are stuck with not even a winter jacket in your car, right?
Yep.
Tying it back, these are like urban examples, driving a car, but tying it back to wilderness survival, it does hugely transfer into urban stuff because it just shows us what we need. And it's just literally taking 5 minutes to gather a sleeping bag, put it in a little Tupperware container, and put it in your trunk.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, that takes nobody extra time at all. Just having a couple extra things, right? If you're in the winter, you got to worry about water and stuff freezing, or like canned foods freezing and blowing up or whatever. But
that's what I was going to say. What would you recommend everyone have in their car, I guess?
Yeah, water is great, but in the wintertime, again, it's kind of, so I always just have extra water bottles that I bring with me. I always just have a backpack that I have just because I'm wherever I go, going to classes or whatever. So those never freeze because they're just coming with me. But just a couple extra snacks. I have a nice big thick winter jacket in my truck. I got the extra they're like the little things you put under the tires if you get stuck, the little traction. I'm kind of a bad example because I always have survival gear because I'm always teaching the classes. So I have a million things. But just, warmth, hydration, calories, right? First aid. Yep. What else do we need? Like, that's pretty much all we need. Are you breathing or bleeding? Are you warm? Are you fed? Are you hydrated? What else? There's really nothing else. I even have an extra pair of glasses because I wear glasses. So like, what if I don't know, something happens, I trip and lose them, or somebody steps on them, or, whatever. I just have an extra pair, just to have it. Just random things. You don't need to go and get the crazy assault rifle lashed to the roof of your car and, all this crazy swords and machetes and zombie apocalypse stuff. But it's like just a sleeping bag.
Yeah. It's a good point, though. I'm really bad about that. I'm a very, life's crazy. I'm running in and out, and, we're in a cold area, and I run out and I just wore my coat, and I didn't have gloves or a hat or anything for me or the kids. And we have one good car now, one bad car. But now when I take the bad car, I'm like, oh, I really should have more stuff in this car in case this car breaks down. Yep. So just, that kind of preparedness is,
and I even, when I was, I've moved across the country a million times. And even when I was moving back from when I lived out in Colorado, the car broke down in Ohio, right outside of Cleveland. There was no tow truck, AAA, everybody. There was no tow truck for like 8 hours, just stuck on the side of the highway, right? So that's a realistic thing that can happen to anybody. It's not like, all of a sudden there's some alien invasion or, abduction thing that's going to happen. That's a very extreme example, right? But, or even the plane crash, right? Like right now it seems like planes are crashing left and right, but you hear about it, I don't know why, but right now it seems like there's a lot of that. But, but that's a very rare thing that can happen. You're probably not going to survive that, honestly. But it's, simple stuff. Just having a couple extra things. I even think about like a knife. Like, I carry a knife, and it's like when I don't have it with me, there's always some reason why I need it, and I have to go and either ask someone for it or find another creative way to open something up, even if it's like the bag for the chicken food. Like, I'm trying to use
every time I open the chicken food, I'm like, why don't I have a knife on?
Yeah, right. So they're pretty tough bags, so you really need to cut through them.
Trying to find that string to pull.
Yeah, I had to use I do flint napping, so I found I was just in my sweatpants in the morning going out just to open up the chickens, getting their food, and they were out, and then I found a rock, a flint nap little thing. So I'm opening that, with the little blade, stone blade there. So, but just simple stuff. It's up to you. Everyone is always responsible for their own life. Usually people with kids tend to find that they're a little bit better at preparing for things. I think just because kids need constant attention and food, and they'll eat, and then 10 minutes later they're hungry, and then they'll throw up, or you need this, or they'll crap themselves. You need that. I have stepkids now, so it's, but you're always prepared when you have kids. But the single individual, or maybe somebody's just so used to just being comfortable, nothing's ever gone wrong. And I'm somebody where if something's going to go wrong, it goes wrong. I don't know why, but I always have to save people off mountains, random strangers, right? It's just a weird, I always have to argue if I ever have to return something at the store. It's always a fight with me. So everything's always difficult. So I always make sure I have the stuff. But if that answers people's questions, and it's I call it the curl ups. You could get the curl up in a ball. I'm going to die. Go ahead. It's your life. It's your choice.
Yeah.
If you want, but I choose not to do that. I like life. Right. I like this world. I want to be here. I think there's a lot of cool things. I have a lot of unfinished projects, and I don't want to just curl up and give up,
Mhm.
right? There's a ton of people that say that, right? And it's anybody has a choice for their life, right? Diet,
Yeah.
exercise, sleep, how you want to go about your life. There's a million different directions you can go. If you feel like your life is comfortable and fine and you don't want to put that sleeping bag in your car, fine. It's your choice. But if you want to be a little bit more comfortable or potentially, survive and live, you can do these simple things that can help you, right?
Yeah. And like
And
it's not black and white. It's not world-ending apocalypse. Oh, I don't want to survive that, because I hear people say that a lot. Well, I don't want to live if there's an apocalypse or something like that. Fine, but it's probably not that. It's going to be something smaller, or it's going to be a little accident, or it's going to be some kind of mishap. And if you have some of these skills or just some of that preparedness, you're going to be much better off.
exactly, right? So,
And I like when you talked about the phone and the map, because yeah, nobody has maps anymore. I mean, when I was a kid, I do remember everybody's car, all in the side pockets of the door, everyone had maps. And we're so reliant on technology now. It's separated us so much from nature and from our environment. And that's part of the whole reason of me making this podcast, is like, I just feel like we are so disconnected. And I'm sure every generation look back at like Thoreau and Emerson, and it cracks me up, because I'm like, they already thought that. And they were like living like we'd like to live like how they were living. But they were already worried about that. People and industrialization moving forward and just getting away from nature. We're so disconnected. So when you're so reliant on technology, when we see sometimes how quickly and how easily that can go awry, or we can lose that, and then what? What happens then? What happens then when that was your only way to contact people? That was your navigation. That was everything.
yeah, exactly.
Your money, like
Yeah,
your access
right.
to your money.
Yep. Yeah. And finances are a huge thing, right? Because it's like, you got to buy gear, you got to buy food. So that is a basic necessity now in society,
Mhm.
So, but yeah, just tying it back to, everyone has a choice, and like I said before, it's like, pick your disaster, plan for that, even if it's for most survival situations, statistically, urban wilderness, any mechanism of survival, any way that survival situation started, broken bone on the trail, lost in the woods, hurricanes sitting on the roof, whatever, statistically, data shows 72 hours or less. And most people die on the first night.
Wow.
So that's like, something happens, and then 12 hours later, you're dead. Hiker lost in the woods in the wintertime, hypothermia kicks in, dead. Then they're looking for them for 5 days, looking for a frozen body covered in snow. Happens every single year. And 72 hours. So it's like, that's only asking 3 days of preparation. That's not much. That's a weekend. It's like a weekend family camping trip. Literally prepare for a weekend family camping trip in your house. Then you're all set. So it's one of those things that, it's not crazy. You don't have to become some big survivalist and do some crazy stuff, but a couple extra flashlights, a couple extra batteries, some canned foods, maybe a blanket or two. There's not much of an investment. It can happen over time.
Yep.
And even like developing plans with your family, right? Fire plan, bug out plan, and intruder plan. That's kind of the 3 plans we have in the house. It's like, okay, out of nowhere, I'll just be like, house on fire. Let's go. What are we going to do? Let's time it, because we're fine. The house isn't on fire, but let's pretend like it is, and let's get out of here to see how we do. Right? Or, oh, there's a dangerous person, with the kids. What are we going to do? Or, hey, we got to get out. We don't know why, but we got to get out and drive. What do we need to take? We're not coming back to the house.
Yep.
So
I feel like mom brain does that a lot. I think I hear other moms say that too. Like, I'm planning it out in my head, or all of a sudden you're just like trying to go to bed and you're like, well, what if someone broke in? What would I do right now? Like, what would this happen? Like,
we think about it, but we need to get the whole family on board and practice it, right? Because it's like, anybody who, might do like martial arts, you can't learn how to punch the bag once and then you're an expert, whatever, anything, right? You get better at what you do. And I always say, if you want to get good at playing soccer, what do? You go to soccer practice. If you want to get good at carving wood, what do? You carve wood. If you want to get good at watching Netflix, what do? You do it. So it's like, you get good at what you do. So if you're going to practice a little family thing, and it could be a fun kind of family bonding time. I do an online monthly skills club on Patreon. It's a good time. We have a bunch of people, and it's cheap, and everyone gets a cool patch at the end of the month. And each month is a different theme. And one of the months, I think it may have been like January of last year, I did like a survival, urban preparedness month. And I told people the big challenge is to try to go 24 hours in your house, no power, no Wi-Fi, no running water, and just see how you do. And maybe turn the heat down to like 55. So, just to see how you do. 24 hours. And that could be like a fun challenge, because we all do it. We go to work, come home, pop the whatever macaroni and cheese in the microwave, sit on our phone as we're eating it, looking at cat videos on Instagram. We're very comfortable in our own home, and that's how we should be, right? We're in our home. We should feel safe and comfortable. But create a little bit of stress and practice that, because then you'll get better at what to do next time. Because in that situation, you can always turn the light back on. You can always turn the heat back up. You can always, take the hot shower or whatever. But practice it for when you can't do that, when you can't be safe again, So it's one of those things that just, I don't know. I like that kind of stuff.
Sounds
I like
a fun family bonding day.
I don't know. My family probably hates me at this point, but they love it too. So, because Emma's really into this stuff, and then the boys are really, really, they like it too. So they like all their stuff, but
that's good.
It's fun to do things like that.
Well, I wanted to ask you, do you have any real life scenarios or like interesting stories where you did have to use some of these skills? Or I know you've hiked, is it all of the, 48,000
I've hiked
footers?
all the New Hampshire 4,000 foot,
48.
all the 48. Yeah, the 48 foot mountains, all 4,000 of them. So New Hampshire, they do the all the 4,000 foot or above. And there's actually more than 48, but there's like a weird qualification where it needs to be separate from another peak and stuff. So there's actually more than 4,000. But, and then you do that, you get a certificate and a little patch. And I'm all about the patches. So, that was I want to go hike, but, I was like, I got to get the patch.
Just wanted the patches. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even like going outside. I just want the patch.
But did you ever have to use any of your skills on those hikes?
Not once. Not one hike did I have to use my knife. Not once did I have to dig into my first aid kit. Not once did I have to use any of that stuff. But guess what? I had it with me. Yeah. So, there was once my friend, it was a winter hike, and she just had kind of like a pair of like hiking shoes, but it was like a winter hike. And me being like, oh, we don't need our snowshoes. We'll be fine. It was actually pretty deep snow. So she actually got her feet like in the snow, and just shoes, not like boots, or gaiters or anything like that to keep the snow out. So at the summit, I did end up, one thing I always teach my students, it seems simple and it's really not much at all, but is to bring a trash bag. So, because that's like it's a 5-cent rain jacket, 5-cent, 5-minute shelter, So I ended up actually cutting parts of that off and using the duct tape I had. I bring hiking poles with me, and I wrap, I don't have them right here to show you, but I wrap duct tape around the hiking poles just so that, and I can forget about it, then I have it. Okay. Trash bag, cut up, duct tape, wrap it around her feet. She has like waterproof socks. She brought extra pairs of socks. Then she's fine, right? She has waterproof boots. Yep. Made out of a trash bag. So I pack pretty light because I cover some of the Presidential Traverse is like 24 miles or whatever. Yep. And you don't want to bring much, but you got to bring some stuff, right? Because something could happen. I don't want to be screwed. But my kind of big survival situation is when I was 19 years old, I was in college doing my adventure stuff, and I had to take a semester out west through, it's the NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School. Yep. And it was a 91-day course. All this, we did backpacking, canyoneering, rock climbing, avalanche rescue, skiing, blah, 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 a bunch of cool stuff. And on the canyoneering section, this was the day before Thanksgiving, 2011. Me and another guy actually got stuck in quicksand, which is not like Tarzan movie quicksand, right? Where like the snake is coming down, you got to grab it by the neck, and you're just sinking and sinking and sinking. It was like wet, like clay, sand, murky stuff at the bottom of a river that we got our feet stuck, and the suction was so strong we actually couldn't get out. Jeez. I ended up digging down, and it was just a weird situation where I couldn't dig myself out because the water kept like replacing all the stuff. And I actually slid my knife down my leg and cut my boot off and slipped my foot out of my boot.
Oh my gosh.
He was actually stuck for 12 and a half hours. And after he was stuck for 3 or 4 hours, we ended up hitting that button on that personal locator beacon. And the one that we had was just like a on-off button and then like a 911 button. You know, there was no way to communicate. The one I have now, I'm able to text to be like, hey, you know, broke my leg, or, you know, emergency, or someone got stung by a bee, whatever, and is dying. But so they came blind, but they came like 4 hours later. You could die of hypothermia in less than 3 hours. So
yeah, that's crazy.
And he was stuck for 12 and a half hours. It took 8 guys in 3 inflatable life rafts digging for an hour and a half. And these are like strong firefighter dudes.
Was he like up to his waist? How deep was he?
He was right up to his waist. Yep.
Wow.
And just stuck. So, so that was pretty crazy.
That's an irrational fear.
Yeah, right. So it's just, but that's not something, that's just like a weird situation where you just don't prepare for.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like a freak situation. We went to cross the river. There was already a boot print right where we were going that showed that somebody else crossed the river a few hours before. And it just happened. Things just happen, right? And it just happened. And we had the only way, I mean, looking back, the only way I would have thought about is if somebody had one of those hydration bladders and had the plastic tube, we could take that off and maybe find a way to get that down and blow air or water into it to break that suction so we can get his foot out. I don't know, something like that. But, but again, I think about it looking back and it's like, we didn't have that stuff in the situation. So, but thank God we had that personal locator beacon. So I do fire with sticks and making stone tools and wearing animal skins all the time, but I always have that with me. I think people overuse them because it's like, oh, ran out of trail mix or, you know, whatever, need coffee. Don't hit that button because you're putting a ton of people's lives at risk, putting them in a helicopter. But
so I don't even know what you're talking about. What is this personal locator?
It's a little GPS. I don't have mine right here with me, but it's just it's a GPS personal locator beacon, right? And what it is the one I have, it's called the Garmin InReach Mini. Okay. So it does pair with my phone. It's lightweight, but then you have to have your phone and your GPS operating. But if I ever need it, it's like $12 a month. Think of it as health insurance, right? And you can use the map, which is amazing. So I mark my foraging and tracking hunting locations on that GPS too. And even if I park in the city, I'll mark where my car is on my GPS app to just, parked here. Yeah. Just because, like I said, I'm terrible at navigating the city. So, because it's just a whole different, it's very grid and not like the woods, you know? So, so just simple stuff. Or there's an emergency, I'm panicking and I need to get back to my car to get out of there, right? But if you need help, there's a couple different options. You can like text your family saying, I need help. Then they can come for you. And then there's the big SOS 911 button that sends it to authorities, whoever that is, right? And then they're going to, on that one, they'll text you and say like, are you able to respond or whatever? And you can tell them what's going on. You can text from that. But it better be a life and death situation that was an accident, right? What people do now, since they have those, is they just think that they can go out there with nothing. You know, they've never hiked a mile mountain. Now they're doing a 25-mile trek with a Poland Spring water bottle, pair of Converse sneakers, and a zip-up hoodie in the wintertime, you know? You always see those guys on the trail, and I'm so jealous of them because that's like ultralight hiking at its finest. Yeah. And they always make it back to their car. But I know if I ended up doing that, something wrong would happen. But it's just the way it goes. So in the wilderness, it's all about accidents can happen. You can get in a car accident and right down the street from your house, accidents happen, right? But you're kind of on your own out there. So the GPS does kind of add a little bit of a insurance. But again, people are overusing them and they're doing things they shouldn't. And they're hitting them kind of prematurely when it's just like, like if I rolled my ankle, I could probably get myself out of there. Maybe my friend can shoulder me and I can speak with them, right? I don't need a helicopter to come get me. But if I snap my femur because I fell off a rock or something on accident, I'm calling the helicopter. So,
that's good to know. I've heard of things similar, but I didn't really realize exactly what that was. So that's
they're an investment. They're like $300. And then you pay per month. But how much is Netflix a month? I don't even know. But just $12 a month. And then you have a cool GPS that you can use day-to-day life. So I said, I mark locations on that all the time. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, that may have been a long answer to.
That's okay. I am going to change topics a little bit though, because I really want to hear about you getting your first deer with the bow that you made yourself.
Yeah. So that was, I have the skull hanging up now. I'm not a trophy hunter, but of course he wanted to be proud and, honor that deer. So I have the skull hanging up.
Well, first of all, where did you make this bow? Who did you make it with? When did you do
I
that?
made this bow in 2015, actually at the Root School in Vermont.
Oh,
Brad
okay.
and Sarah are amazing. And the do a gathering every September, the Roots Rendezvous. They're great people, really good skills. I took a bow making class with them right out of college, pretty much 2015. And that's the bow that I shoot. That's my bow. That's the bow that I use. And I've had it now for 10 years. So I've become pretty good with it compared to any other bow. It's pretty much just like a log that I carved, kind of primitive longbow. And I just finished another one like 5 months ago. So I have a second one now that I'm trying to shoot around, but it's not as good. That one's kind of the wood is a little weird. So, but it shoots. Yeah, just going out in the woods. I found a really good spot because every year I'm out there, trying to get stuff. I'm more of a turkey hunter. In the spring and fall, I'm usually going after turkeys and gray squirrels and rabbits and stuff. But deer hunting is something I've just lightly done over the years. And then this year I was really like, I'm going to do it. I'm really going to go out there and go out in the woods. And it was funny because Emma said all the memes that are on Instagram with like the wives, like not having a husband she's like, those are real because I was just gone. Wake up at 3 a.m., go out there in the dark, set up the tree stand. But I was out, I think I was hunting squirrels and I found a really cool spot. And I was like, it was up on a hill. And I was like, I'm going to go up there. It looks like I'm just curious what goes on. And as soon as I got to the top of that hill, I actually found a deer skull with antlers on it. So that's a cool find just to find. As soon as I picked the skull up, a deer snorted and ran away. What? And I was just like, this is where I'm going to shoot my deer this year. And I don't talk about it much, but I'm kind of like a spiritual nature animal, stuff like that. But I was kind of like, all right, this is the spot. This is where I'm going to commit to, whether I get a deer or not. This is where I'm going to hunt this year. And I was out there for, 2 or 3 weeks. I changed a couple different exact locations. But the first day I was out there, right when I set my tree stand up, because I have one of those little backpack, wicked lightweight. You're sitting on like a little circle, up in the tree pretty much. It's not comfortable at all, but you got the harness, but setting it up, I'm doing it at night. No one knows where I am. So that's always and I think the biggest killer of hunters actually is tree stand falls.
I know,
so
it is scary.
Another thing to just be aware of, but I put the harness on and
wear the harness. A lot of people don't wear the harnesses.
Yeah. But I guess I've heard that a lot of hunters die because they fall. And then there's something with the blood where they're hanging for so long that the blood becomes toxic. And then when they do get off, that blood pumps. It's like when, I don't know. Yeah. So I heard that. Not sure exactly if it's true, but I heard it from a reputable first aid person. So, but yeah, just out there. And I actually took a shot at one deer the day before, missed. And then the next day, those 2 deer came back. And because that was just their route that I was right on. And first one runs by in a spot, right? There's like a little wide area between these 2 trees, probably, I don't even know how far away. It wasn't like right up against me, but it wasn't wicked far away. She ran, jumped right there. And then the other one stopped on the hill and looked back. And I was like, okay, from that body language, there's something distracting the deer. So they're not really paying attention because people say hunt from a tree stand because deer don't look up. They look up. They look right at you. They know you're there as soon as you move or make a noise. So they were a little distracted. And then I said to myself, I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to her going exactly where the other one went. And it's going to be right in between these 2 trees because I got an antlerless doe tag this year. Mm-hmm. So, and she booked it. She ran right from whatever they were running from, which I found out after I shot the deer. But she was running and I had maybe this much of a window. It was like a miracle shot. I took the shot. And then my arrow actually went in, bounced out, and I thought that, I wounded the deer. Shoot, like I hit the shoulder blade and the arrow bounced out. And then I'm sitting up there, and after you shoot a deer, you go through like the adrenaline, like freaking out, like, but I felt terrible. And I was like you're usually supposed to wait like an hour or 2 after you shoot the deer. But I was like, I just can't, because what ended up happening too is a coyote. They were running from a coyote and the coyote came by after the deer.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, okay, thanks coyote, because you kind of scared the deer into me. And it was like
was this morning or like going early evening?
Morning. Yeah, this was like 8 in the morning. Okay. And it was like a whole situation. But then I was like, all right, well, the coyote's going to scare the deer away anyway, no matter what I did. So let me just go down and look at the arrow. And then I actually have the arrow. And I found the arrow like this.
Whoa.
And I know people are going to be watching the video too, the recording. So I found the arrow like this. just broken in with blood. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of blood. And the arrow broke. So that means the other head was in the deer. So it was like this, broken inside. So this was inside the deer, but from a distance, it looked like the arrow just went in and out. And I was like, oh, I wounded the deer. So I saw that and I was like, okay, that looks pretty good. Let me just see. And then maybe 20 feet away, it was just like a thick blood trail. So I hit an artery right above the heart. It was like the cleanest, quickest kill, and the deer was right up the hill dead already. I know I'll probably never have a clean kill like that, you know, because I'm hunting primitive archery, and as long as you hit the deer good, you can kill the deer quicker with an arrow than you can with a gun, you know, because that is very effective right there. But you know, it was just like perfect spot to hit, and it was, you know, I dropped to my knees, bawled my eyes out for like an hour, and it was awesome. It was, you know, but you know,
and you made those arrows too.
These arrows are handmade, not by me though. They're made. My friend actually gave me these. So these are from Raptor Archery. I got these as a gift, actually from Arthur and Sarah. For teaching at their gathering, they gave me 6 dozen of these. I think I've lost like 2 of them and broke this one now. But
so I know that when you do archery, at least in Maine, I'm sure Massachusetts is similar. It has to be a certain weight to be like legal to hunt deer with. So how do you do that with a primitive bow to know that you're like, you have enough tension to be lethal?
The bow I made, I just took one of those, like, I think it was like a fish scale to like weigh fish and just pull the bow back.
Oh, okay.
Mine's like 55 pounds, so it's well over the limit. And in Mass, though, you just can't hunt with stone arrowheads. You have to use steel. So that's why if I make, because I have a few arrows I made that I'm trying to go after turkeys with, but they have to have steel, so I can't do stone. But I follow the rules, you know. So just in case. So but just
that's amazing. That's an epic first hunt.
I was pretty, you know, it was and I've been out hunting for years, and then this was my first one I killed, because that's what I'm hunting with. I'm not hunting deer with a gun, and maybe if I brought my, you know, shotgun with a scope on it, I could do some different successes, you know, over the years, but I'm hunting with my bow. But because that's just the way I want to do it. But so now we got venison. I really want to do something special with the skin, because, you know, we tan the hides, and, you know, I want to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if it's a shirt or maybe I'll do a hunting backpack, so then that deer kind of continues with me. But
that'd be really cool.
That might be a good idea, actually. I think I might do that. So
utilize all the things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We saved everything. I think the only thing we left was like a little clump with some guts, like this big, out in the woods. And then the next day it was gone. The coyotes ate it. So it was like nothing at all went to waste. I have all the bones. We're saving those for the tools, and, you know, little bone knives and arrowheads and awls and needles and stuff like that. So everything is used.
Super cool. I love it.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap up here?
Yeah, I feel like I can keep going. There's a ton
of... I know. You want to keep going?
You know, I one thing I like to just make up, and I'll do this as kind of my last point, is, you know, I teach in my classes, there's all these survival books about the skills and about, you know, what to bring with you and all this stuff, right? It's all about the skills. You go on Instagram and you look at these like crazy shelters that you probably wouldn't want to build in a survival situation, but they're cool, like bushcraft shelters, all this stuff. But your ability to move is really your number one way to get out of there, right? It's not about the skills you have. It's about your ability to move. So like that guy with the zip-up hoodie and the Poland Spring water bottle, he's hiking up the mountain and he's coming down. He's hiking, right? He's in good health, good fitness, getting up there, getting down. He's fine. He gets to go home that night, right? If you bring a bag that's way too heavy, you can't move. If you get an injury, you can't move. If you get lost, you can't move, right? So I just always ask people to, you know, fitness is subjective. If you want to wake up at 4 a.m. and go for a 25-mile run, go ahead. If you want to go for a 10-minute walk after work, go ahead. You're still doing something. You're practicing moving, right? You get good at what you're doing. But, you know, just fitness and good health. And I think there's a whole rabbit hole we could go down about food and diet right here. But, you know, and just don't do any, and just be realistic. If you've never hiked a mountain at all, or even like, you know, some local trail hills, please don't go with that friend that's going to go do the 25-mile presidential traverse for your first hike, you know, because it's not going to be a good time. It could lead to a deadly situation or just like a miserable situation. You're going to ruin your friendship because your friend's going to hate you. You're going to hate your friend. And, you know, so just build up to it, practice. and, whatever you want to be good at, right? If you want to be good at sitting on the couch and you're comfortable doing that or just doing whatever, that's fine. Like I said, I don't judge anybody for what they do. But if you really want to go out in the wilderness and take care of yourself, you got to be healthy. So that's just the way it is. So
yeah, just even basic physical fitness. I mean, even on shows like Alone, when they're building those shelters, I'm watching some of the stuff they're doing. I'm like, that is hard work. You know?
Exactly. Right. And even just like, maybe something happens to your friend and like you need to help them walk out. Like, are you able to walk yourself for 8 miles downhill while you also are supporting your friend's arm with their ankle that they can't use, So it's things like that. So
I'm really into strength maintenance. I think that's something that is becoming more and more prevalent for women in particular. I think we're not typically strength training, and now it is becoming a bigger thing and showing that like as we get older, we're only losing muscle if we're not maintaining and utilizing it. And people all the time I hear like, oh, I threw out my back, doing some really simple basic thing. Well, that only happens because you're not conditioned, so people have like, well, I'm strong or I have this strength, but they really haven't stayed in shape in any way. And I don't mean like shape like how they look, just physically fit enough that they've been strength training or maintaining. And then you do this really small maneuver and it pulls a muscle. And if you had maintained, then that wouldn't happen. And then people say, oh, I have a bad back, I can't work out. So it kind of just creates this cycle.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's like,
I
don't care how you look. I just care that you're able to, there was like the primal movement stuff. It's like, are you able to crawl, jump, climb, run, fight? That might be just those 5. It's like the primal things that like a natural human being is capable of doing. Right. Walking, obviously, but things like that. It's like practice those things, You might look weird at the gym if you're just crawling around, but, you could do it out in the woods or try to balance on a log and crawl. You see all those, the MoveNet, the primal movement people.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that stuff coming out now, which I definitely want to do probably a whole episode on that.
Yeah,
because
that'd be
that's
awesome.
A whole
I'd
other
love
thing,
to
but
listen to that.
It's really cool.
So even just doing something, we're going for a run or doing some martial arts practice. You're doing all those things. I don't know, swimming, going to the indoor bouldering gym down the road, whatever, pull-ups. So try to put the pull-up bar in one of the doorways, and anytime you walk in and out of that doorway, do a pull-up or 2 or something, 10 or whatever. Then everyone
I think that they say the average American can't even do 1 pull-up.
Yeah. It's the first one's the hardest. Then once you can do 1, then you can keep doing 1, develop that muscle. But the first one's always the hardest. And then after you do 1, then you can quickly do 2, then 3, then 4. So,
Yeah. Well, Tim, so what are the next big things that you are doing or hosting, and then tell everyone where they can find you and find your information?
Well, the big thing this week, and I'm sure people listen to this, it's going to be a little too late, but this happens every year. Happened last year, it's happening this year, so I hope it keeps going, but it's the Boston Outdoor Expo. They asked me to go in. We got a big booth, and we teach classes there, and I'm actually a speaker. I get the microphone and go on the big stage with like hundreds of people watch. That's always a scary thing, but that's a big deal. It's like it's at the Boston Convention Center there, and but we have tons of classes going on. I actually have a whole team now of folks, adjunct instructors and myself, all teaching stuff. I would say to anybody, if you're in New England, really, it's well worth it to come to our 6-hour Wilderness Survival 1 class. And then after you do Survival 1, then you can do 2 or 3. After you do 2 and 3, then you can take 4 to kind of build up to it. In Survival 4, we're making like the atlatl spear thrower and, tracking animals and making those cold burnt bowls that you can boil water in and
super cool.
Things like that. But Survival 1, simple. That's the skills I feel like everybody, no matter who they are, should just have. It's like backpacker survival, basic, right? You bought a survival kit, now how do you use it?
Yep.
And then, as we have a good relationship with the Moose Ridge School, and we do multi-day classes up there. I'd say if you really want something cool, come do the SOS Challenge, the Survival Outdoor Skills Challenge, and we do that class there. This is our fourth year doing that, but we're doing it every year. We started.
Is that the same as the Mayhem on the Mountain, or that's
so I went through a whole bunch of changes and stuff like that. So that's what that was. So if you ever see anything on that, I changed it and changed the curriculum on it a little bit. It's a little bit more streamlined now. After doing it for a few years, we figured out some things to work out. And now it's like a nice, smooth running thing. But it's, Thursday, Friday, our classes, you're camping out in your tent. We feed you like, it's kind of, glamping in a way, but it's, but you're getting good food. You're coming, you're learning good skills Thursday, Friday. Anybody can show up. We've had the first year we did it, we had a woman who's never even slept in a tent before, and she was in like
Wow.
her late 30s. And we had somebody else who was training for that Naked and Afraid TV show. So it was like the whole spectrum. Both people learned stuff. Both people had a good time. And
Yep.
we're very good at taking care of beginners and also pushing experts. So it's kind of like, okay, you come with a whole bunch of skills. We might give you harder wood to do the fire with or something like that. You know, the beginners we want to prep you to be successful. So we're not, you know, any experience level is welcome. But Thursday, Friday are classes. Saturday, you're on a team, and it's not a competitive event, but there's like fun little challenges that we give you against the other teams. And Saturday morning, you do like crazy survival challenges, and it's always a good time, you know, and it's like ridiculous stuff. You know, we always keep it a secret, but we do always do like an axe throwing challenge in that, which is just fun. Not really survival, but it's just fun.
Yeah.
And then one of the last challenges is I call it the Hurricane Hustle. And I have a leaf blower and a hose. And whoever builds their fire and gets it going first, as I'm trying to, there's a whole bunch of videos on my Instagram and all that. If people want to look that up, but I'm just cracking up laughing, spraying people with a hose. But and then Saturday night, after all the challenges, you go out on a survival overnight. And that's kind of a choose your own adventure. If you want to go out with a snack and a sleeping bag and a tarp, great. If you want to go out with nothing except the clothes on your back and build a shelter and try to get a fire going, great. Mm-hmm. It's whatever, because your tent is set up at camp. It's a chance for you to practice not dying the first night of survival, right? If something goes wrong, you can always come back to your tent. We're up all night having a fire, so you can come warm up and come ask us for help, whatever. Everyone has a good time at that. And then Sunday we get like $2,000 worth of prizes, and
wow,
everyone gets stuff. You win points throughout, and everyone gets equal value stuff. It's just whoever wins the most points gets to choose prize first. But great time. That's the SOS challenge. That's all over my website, social media, all that stuff. That's up in Maine at the Moose Ridge School. It's like the middle weekend in August, like the 15th to 17th this year. So
awesome. And then want to tell everyone your socials and your website, just where they can find you?
So it's Owl Eyes Wilderness Survival. If you look that up on anything, you'll find me. But Owl Eyes Wilderness on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, owleyeswilderness.com, everything Owl Eyes Wilderness. If you just look that up on any social media, you'll find me. I'm most active on Instagram and, Facebook too, but Instagram's usually where I'm there. So putting up all the funny videos. Yeah. I do a lot of really dumb, funny survival videos. So,
well, thanks so much, Tim. This was an awesome conversation. I think people definitely learned some stuff from this. So
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It was great to hang out with you and talk to you.
Yeah. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave a review. In that review, I would love to hear what topics you'd like to see covered next and which guests you'd love to hear from in future episodes. You can connect with me on Instagram at Original Being Podcast, and be sure to follow, like, and share the podcast on all platforms to help spread the word. Thanks for listening.